If you want to go, go. I'm not going. That wasn't just a moment of pride. It sounded like a breaking point. Andrei had pushed Elizabeth far enough for her to bite back on camera. Something fans hadn't seen with this much bite before. Ultimatums don't usually land this hard unless something behind the scenes is already cracking. But instead of the usual on-screen blowout, the screen went dark. Not in a dramatic musical cliffhanger way, no next episode, no follow-up, no reunion showdown. Just gone. Andrei and Elizabeth were once center stage, loud fights, family wars, dramatic sit-downs. Now, radio silence. Not on Happily Ever After. Not on Pillow Talk. Not even a Where Are They Now? To fake close a chapter. One day they were headline makers, meme fodder, must-see TV. Then they were vapor. This wasn't your average soft goodbye. TLC has kept cast members with worse scandals, stickier breakups, even actual legal cases. But this time, there was no send-off, no press statement, not even a shady subtweet from production. And knowing how much TLC loves to cash in on chaos, you have to ask, why shut the door quietly now? Fans began asking questions, hard ones, not about the couple's marriage, but about their total absence. The ones who stirred the pot best, who built entire season arcs around their volatile personalities, suddenly weren't worth a callback? This isn't forgetfulness. This feels like deletion. No slip-ups, no leaks, just a content vacuum where two drama giants used to live. And surprise, there wasn't a messy public split. No Instagram Live exposing a feud. No exclusive quote to confirm whether the Castrovettes were fired, quit, or forced to walk. Which raises the bigger question, are they staying quiet or being forced to? The longer they remain MIA, the louder the silence grows. It's not just the absence, it's the timing. Andrei and Elizabeth were peak assets for the network, ratings movers. And every reality fan knows networks almost never throw away characters unless the off-camera cost outweighs the on-camera payoff. That's when speculation turns into suspicion. And if they didn't leave because of drama, what happened that was too risky to even air? Their last filmed moments didn't feel like a goodbye. They felt like build-up. There were money problems, resentment bubbling inside Elizabeth's family, and Andrei's rising frustration with the show's producers even hinted at discontent behind the camera. Fans have pointed it out. Andrei didn't just argue with his in-laws. More and more, he started breaking the fourth wall, calling out the production during scenes, which, by TLC standards, is the closest you get to slapping the hand that feeds you. None of this feels random. Put the pieces together, and it starts looking less like an exit and more like a cover-up. When the cameras were rolling, Andrei was the guy who prided himself on wearing the pants, battling his American in-laws while holding firm to his tough Moldovan pride. Elizabeth, torn between loyalty to her husband and pressure from her family, often broke down, lashed out, or played peacemaker in scenes that felt like emotional war zones. They were magnets for conflict. But conflict that earned views. Reactions. Money. TLC turned their arguments into cliffhangers. Their fights were storylines. Their dysfunction was marketable. Until it wasn't. Fans remember when Angela, with her volcanic temper and cringeworthy outbursts, was still floating across multiple spin-offs. Big Ed, whose controversies stretch across seasons, keeps bouncing back. And yet here we are, watching the network give the silent treatment to Andrei and Libby, who delivered chaos, but never crossed the kind of visible boundaries that others did. So why them? Why now? Even more confusing is their social media shift. The couple who once aired their dirty laundry weekly suddenly started posting nothing but polished family moments, filtered vacations, quiet parenting clips. Their online life got squeaky clean fast. No hints. No hints at all. It's the kind of rebranding people do when they're trying to survive something bigger off camera. You can feel the nervous perfection in every post. The captions don't match the faces. There's no edge, no fire, just emptiness behind the smiles. This isn't an evolution. It looks like containment. People change? Sure. But both of them switching gears overnight? Pulling back from fan interactions? No longer defending themselves when trolls bring up the old seasons? That's not growth. That feels like PR strategy. Or legal advice. And let's be honest, TLC doesn't usually mind explosive behavior. They count on it. As long as cast members stay within the lines of contracts and keep drawing audience reactions, they're rarely exiled. Even when things get pretty toxic, they package chaos with background music and release tell-alls to patch reputations, which makes the situation even stranger. Andrei and Libby were never known for walking on eggshells. They were confrontational, unpredictable, but profitable. So, again, if personalities twice as volatile keep getting invited back, what made TLC flinch hard enough to cut them loose with zero acknowledgement? You do not ghost your two biggest reactors unless something behind the scenes is burning hotter than what you can show. What kind of problem makes a network shut up instead of cash in? That's the question echoing across fan forums, Reddit threads, and entertainment gossip circles for months. A failed contract renewal wouldn't be this quiet. A voluntary break would be timed with a Planted People magazine article and a re-entry teaser. The silence isn't a coincidence. It's a strategy. Remember, this couple had just started teasing their YouTube vlog adventures and were building more of a presence beyond TLC. Then, pause. No videos, no updates, no collabs. Why pull away right when off-platform popularity was blowing up? Smart reality stars usually leverage their TLC fame into something longer-lasting. A podcast, recipes, merch, something. But this couple? They suddenly lost interest in everything content-related, right after being cut from the show. That's not disinterest. That's a shutdown, possibly enforced. Which brings us to the real stakes. If TLC was willing to lose the ad revenue, the ratings spikes, and all the built-in tension Andrei and Libby brought, it's only because keeping them on the schedule costs more than pulling them off. That only happens when production stops being entertainment and starts being a risk. Reality TV isn't as spontaneous as it looks. Underneath every dramatic fight, every teary confession, and every awkward dinner table scene, there's a mountain of paperwork. The kind of contracts most viewers never see, but every cast member has to sign. These aren't casual agreements. They're airtight binding documents, dozens of pages long, covering everything from filming obligations to how you're allowed to act, where you're allowed to go, how you use social media, what you say about the network, and what happens if you violate any of it. These contracts include strict behavior clauses. If you threaten production flow, costs rise. If you show up late multiple times, that can trigger penalties. If you cause conflict that spills onto the crew, not just cast drama, that's where things get delicate. Every production day is timed and budgeted. Crews are scheduled. Locations are rented. Equipment is insured. Insurance doesn't cover cast members going rogue or production halting because someone refused to cooperate or walked off mid-shoot. We saw Andrei snap at producers more than once. Fans picked up on it. At first, it felt like Andrei being Andrei, loud, prideful, stubborn. But then cracks began to show that felt less about personality and more about structure. He didn't just clash with the cast. He started resisting the show itself, speaking directly about editing, calling out scenes as staged, challenging how he and Elizabeth were being portrayed. Those moments don't air unless something is boiling silently underneath. And then there's the family. Elizabeth's side of the story was always in chaos. Her father Chuck, her siblings, the backroom business drama, the tension so thick it became a running plot. Those family scenes often escalated into full-blown verbal wars. multiple cast members yelling over each other, threatening to walk off, physically moving toward confrontation. It was messy TV gold. But it was also expensive to manage. When fights get too aggressive and producers need to pull cast members apart, or, worse, stop rolling unexpectedly, it isn't just a pause in drama. That's thousands of dollars lost per hour. You don't get that day back. TLC might compress that moment into a 2-minute scene on air, but the fallout costs real money. And if those delays happen often enough, it starts triggering higher-level warnings, network reviews, legal review, HR intervention if crew members raise complaints. One ruined production day is a problem. But what if it wasn't just one? What if those interrupted days kept stacking up behind the scenes while the cameras framed it as storyline tension? Andrei and Elizabeth weren't disruptive in a classic reality scandal kind of way. They were disruptive to the machine. They messed with the clock, not the headlines. And time is money on sets. The more a production falls behind, the more risk gets logged against it. At some point, the show stops asking, "Are they entertaining?" and starts demanding, "Are they worth the liability?" That is the question that breaks careers without saying a word to the audience. $1 million. That's the number circulating in whispers, Reddit threads, and behind-the-scenes gossip rooms. Not confirmed, no paperwork made public, not a single headline with hard evidence. But still, it lingers. Fans repeat it. Industry insiders raise their eyebrows at it. And so far, absolutely no one's come forward to shut it down. Not Andrei, not Elizabeth, not TLC. If this rumor were fake, why stay quiet? In the world of unscripted television, a $1 million dispute doesn't mean someone walked away with a briefcase of cash. It means consequences. Measurable damage. It means hours lost, flights canceled, contracts breached, sets left empty, and crew members working overtime. Or not at all. It means shooting a whole day and throwing it in the trash because the scene turned volatile or completely unusable. Rescheduling isn't free. Holding locations costs money. And if the couple was demanding more control, extra resources, or special treatment that the production refused to give, things can escalate faster than viewers ever realize. Now take that same instability and imagine it was happening more than once, over multiple episodes, across multiple seasons. TLC isn't new to this game. They've seen and survived it all. But TV production, especially for a show like 90 Day Fiancé, relies on tight logistics, predictability, and, more than anything else, control. Not having it? That breaks the budget before lawyers even enter the chat. In cases like this, the dispute doesn't need to go to court to become real. These conflicts are typically buried where the public can't see them. That's by design. Entertainment contracts almost always contain arbitration clauses. That means any serious legal issue gets handled in private, behind legal doors, not courtroom ones. It's negotiated through a neutral third party. Quiet, fast, clean, and cloaked in ironclad non-disclosure agreements. NDAs are brutal. You don't get to tell your side. You don't get to hint it exists. You pretend it never happened. Or you open yourself up to another legal mess, this time with clear consequences. That's why fans may never get confirmation. And it's why silence sometimes says more than a denial ever could. So the question isn't, where's the proof? The question is, why hasn't anyone denied anything? That's what keeps the rumor alive. Because if a $1 million claim was total fiction, ending the rumor would have been easy. A single spicy Instagram story. A clapback on TikTok. One sarcastic post from someone in production. That kind of statement would go viral instantly and shut the conversation down. But the silence isn't accidental. It's strategic. In this business, real damage doesn't look like fights on screen. It looks like halted deals, Unpaid teams, locations refusing to allow cameras back. Reputation damage so internal the fans never see it, but the cost gets very real, very fast. And with any show facing financial pressure, the moment a cast member starts endangering crew schedules, vendor relationships, or the network's reputation with advertisers, the math shifts. Loud, unpredictable cast members are good until they start costing more than they make. So, what exactly happened between Andrei, Elizabeth, and the people who used to put them on primetime? Maybe it started with one bad shoot. Maybe it exploded into a production disaster that someone had to clean up, quietly. But if $1 million was really on the table, that means someone somewhere believes they lost more than they gained. That isn't dramatic. That's business. And business doesn't do interviews. It signs settlement sheets. In most breakups, especially reality TV breakups, there's drama. Someone storms off a set. A tell-all goes public. A cast member posts cryptic messages aimed at producers without tagging them, but tag-teaming them emotionally. But that's not what happened with Andrei and Elizabeth. They didn't rage quit or fade naturally. They disappeared mid-noise, right after dishing out ultimatums, threatening to walk, and nodding toward behind-the-curtain conflicts. Then, boom. Flatline. No dramatic goodbye scene. No edit made to look like some happy ending, as TLC often does to tie things up with a bow. They didn't even get bumped to background player status. They were erased quietly, like files deleted, not archived. For viewers familiar with how reality TV works, that's a red flag wrapped in silence. Characters who bring chaos stay on the cast list until it stops paying off. The worse they are, the more friction they create, the higher the engagement. And in most cases, that's incentive. It keeps cameras rolling. It buys time for other stars to develop storylines. It keeps advertisers watching the numbers. So, why not Andrei? Why not Elizabeth, who had endless unresolved family drama ready to be stretched across 2 more seasons? If being disruptive was a problem, half the 90-Day Fiancé universe would be gone already. But they're not. Even after court charges, cheating claims, explosive reunions, stars like Angela, Big Ed, Larissa, they keep coming back. TLC has welcomed them after far messier exits. But with Andrei and Elizabeth, the door didn't swing shut. It vanished behind them. That's not firing. That looks more like quiet locking from the inside. Now comes the question that started swarming gossip boards and viewers alike. Were they banned? Lifetime ban sounds dramatic and final, like a punishment. But in reality TV, it's usually way quieter. There's rarely an email with the subject line, "You're banned from TLC forever." That's not how this industry plays. You just stop getting calls. Your contract doesn't renew. The producers move on without telling you. Your approval requests for side projects stop getting answered. Maybe your emails shift to a department assistant instead of a producer. You don't know you're done. You feel it. This is way more strategic than dramatic. The network protects its brand, manages risk, and avoids lawsuits by ghosting trouble. There's no public confrontation to point back to, no moment to blame. They don't need to explain why someone's not on screen anymore, because they already legally protected themselves from having to disclose anything. If you speak out, you risk breaching your own agreement. They don't have to say you're a liability. They just act like they have better options now. And to be honest, they usually do. So when fans ask if Andrei and Elizabeth were banned, that's probably not the word TLC would ever use. But the result? Feels the same. Total lockout. No trailers. No mentions. No spin-off talks. No pillow talk. Zero signs of testing waters for a return. Which circles back to the bigger issue. Why would 2 central figures suddenly become that toxic, that fast? Think about the track record. TLC has brought back cast members with crimes on their names, with divorces still ongoing. with ongoing online controversy so loud that the network ends up trending on Twitter for the wrong reasons. So what happened that made the situation too delicate to touch? Maybe it wasn't a singular dramatic blow-up. Maybe it was several small moments stacked up. Consistent defiance, friction with crew, unpredictable behaviors that shut down sets, legal gray areas that scared sponsors. In a network that tolerates chaos for cash, the only thing too costly to keep is someone who threatens the production itself. And that's what people are beginning to realize. This isn't about content. It's about control. Andrei has always been known for having a short fuse. He clashed not only with Elizabeth's family, but with the production bubble itself, breaking the fourth wall, calling out edits. That looks minor on TV, but in the industry, it's dangerous. Exposing process or hinting at manipulations behind the scenes damages the brand TLC works to sell, that what you see is real. And if Andrei messed too much with that illusion, there's no way they were going to hand him a bigger microphone. Elizabeth, on her end, started playing along less and less. Notice how her emotional displays dropped as their scenes got messier? She wasn't reacting the way TLC formats love. Her tone was flatter. Her notes hit different. That's the first sign of a star detaching from the role they were being asked to play. And when stars stop delivering on cue, production starts grooming others to take their space. So now, you've got two leads who aren't cooperating, aren't producing clean footage anymore, allegedly creating tension behind the scenes, and potentially tied up in contractual violations that cost the network real money. That combination isn't fixable in a reunion segment. That's executive-level damage control. When reality stars stop being characters and start acting like liabilities, networks pull the plug in silence, not out of pettiness, but to avoid more exposure. That's what turns a familiar face into a ghost. Not because producers are mean, but because someone somewhere higher up decided the spreadsheet didn't balance anymore. And the silence? That's not incompetence. It's calculated. You can't clip what doesn't air. You can't cancel what isn't announced. TLC doesn't owe anyone a send-off, especially not when letting the page go blank keeps lawsuits off their desks. So maybe it's not a ban in the black and white sense. But if Andrei and Elizabeth never return, and silence continues to be the loudest thing coming from both sides, then fans will be left wondering what went down that was so off-limits it didn't even make it to a deleted scene. That's the difference between a fired cast member and a strategically erased one. Because when the real damage doesn't live in an episode, but in the days the show couldn't shoot, no camera's going to catch that. And no one's ever going to spell it out on a confessional. Not everything that breaks a reality TV career happens on camera. Sometimes the damage comes from things the cast doesn't even realize were noticed. A rolled eye toward a producer. A crew member walking away shaken after a scene went too far. A PA calling in sick after another all-day shoot turned into emotional warfare. The cameras catch the drama, but it's the people operating them, packing the gear, driving the vans, and logging notes late into the night, who quietly keep score in a different way. Whispers on fan forums have said it for months. Andrei and Elizabeth's energy wasn't just hard for viewers, it was hard for the team behind the scenes. Some claim there were shouting matches not meant for air. Others allege that offset behavior crossed into uncomfortable territory. Nothing confirmed. No leaked audio. But the type of chatter that doesn't go away. Not because it's sensational, but because it sounds familiar to anyone who's worked in unscripted TV. And then there's the hotel story, the one no one's naming directly, only referencing in vague phrases, late night, a heated back and forth, noise complaints from staff, someone having to step in, no arrests, no headlines. But a hiccup serious enough that the crew supposedly had to shuffle location plans the next day. maybe it was nothing. Or maybe that's how it always looks when production damage control works fast. This isn't the first time TLC has quietly iced someone out instead of making a scene. Jess from Cold Season faded without a wrap-up. Jeffrey never got that reunion spot. Others have had segments cut down, scenes removed mid-season, whole characters edited thinner after something off-screen became too risky to carry forward. There's no announcement. No velvet rope. Just a subtle resolve. They don't work here anymore. That process usually starts when internal reports add up. Crew flag concerns. HR has to take notes. Insurance gets looped in. After all, the risk isn't just about bad footage. It's about safety, professionalism, brand reputation. You can broadcast toxic arguments between cast members without issue. But when crew feels unsafe, when third-party partners, like hotels or location vendors, start pushing back, that changes everything. And sometimes, legal exposure is lurking underneath. Not lawsuits from cast against each other, but from crew if the working environment crosses a line. Accidental harm, intimidation, contract violations. These are the kinds of issues that networks don't tease on trailers. They erase them before they ever get close to air. So maybe the question isn't what drama happened between Andrei and Libby, but what did the crew deal with after the camera stopped that no one was allowed to talk about? Because that's the kind of story you won't find in a confessional clip, but it's the one that leaves a permanent mark where a season finale used to be. For years, Andrei and Elizabeth were treated like royalty within the 90-Day Fiancé universe. Not background characters, not flavor of the week drama. They were given high-value real estate, full story arcs, multi-season runs, a visa storyline, a wedding, a baby, family feuds, and spin-off screen time that rivals some franchise veterans. Their faces were stamped across trailers, thumbnails, even merch. That kind of attention isn't handed out lightly in reality television. It's earned, over time, by proving you bring attention and drama with every scene. But now, that investment looks like a write-off. They went from franchise anchors to digital ghosts in what feels like a breath. Not faded, not aged out, just cut. And it's still hard to say whether they jumped or were quietly pushed. These weren't people coasting through scenes waiting for fame to fizzle. Andrei especially leaned into his role with sharp elbows. He wore his pride on autopilot and refused to tone it down even when it hurt his arc. There were signs, subtle at first, that he and production weren't aligning anymore. He questioned story choices loudly. He shut down casting narratives producers likely built entire arcs around. Maybe he believed he'd earned the right to control his edit, or at least steer the direction of his storyline. And maybe, for a while, he had. But power in reality TV is temporary. The second your leverage starts costing more than it brings, that power turns off like a light switch. Elizabeth was in a trickier spot. She was the bridge between her husband and her famously combative family. Her loyalty to Andrei changed her family's pitch to production. The pressure to deliver tension every season only grew. And the weight of carrying entire episodes, especially with her family's brand of unpredictable chaos, couldn't have been small. You could see it in the later scenes. Her energy dimmed. Her performances got flatter. The same woman who used to stand between her dad and her marriage with fiery tears now seemed tired. Checked out. And maybe that wasn't acting. Maybe the cost of being a story engine for so long, of drawing your check from drama that splintered real relationships, finally felt too high. The irony? In trying to own their narrative, Andrei and Elizabeth may have boxed themselves out of it entirely. When a reality couple becomes too central to the storm, they either weather it or get buried beneath it. Whatever power they thought they had across their final appearances clearly wasn't enough to protect them. Not from production delays, not from crew mistrust, not from the silent strategic machine that quietly replaces even the most explosive stars when things get too expensive, too unstable, or too complicated to keep spinning. And for a family that once defined the franchise's central arc, the silence now rings louder than any fight ever aired. In this world, closure is rare. Especially in reality TV, where storylines don't end, they just stop being profitable. There's no formal exit handshake. No honest confession tucked into a reunion special. When a character vanishes from a long-running franchise, it's hardly ever about resolution. It's about rhythm, flow, airspace, room for someone newer, more manageable, or simply less risky to slide in and do the job. Andrei and Elizabeth didn't get closure. And maybe that was the point. We watched them build a reality kingdom, conflict by conflict, season after season. From immigration gates to baby milestones, business feuds, family blowouts, cultural clashes, every beat was caught on camera, edited, packaged, and sold. And then, nothing. Not even a final scene to say goodbye. Their vanishing act felt like someone slicing off a season mid-sentence. No answers, no context, just dead air where familiarity used to live. And fans feel that emptiness, even if they don't know what to name it. It sits like a missing puzzle piece, forever paused on a storyline that now feels half-told. That's what reality TV does best, and worst. It lets you feel like you know people deeply, then rips them away without ceremony. And when the exit isn't explained, it leaves you questioning what was real, what was narrative, and what must have happened off camera that was simply too big or too dangerous to be shown. That tension is woven into the genre. The illusion of intimacy collides with the reality of contracts, of control, of crew reports and financial negotiations and human flaws that don't play well when filtered through primetime. Andrei and Elizabeth weren't the first to go missing without warning. And they won't be the last. But the silence around them feels heavier because theirs wasn't the kind of friendship ending fade we've seen before. It wasn't the pretty bow on a messy divorce or a visual send-off after a final redemption arc. It was a digital blackout. Intentional. Clean. Like someone wiped their fingerprints off the frame. And left the rest of us to pretend the story ever made sense. That leaves questions sitting in all the edges. Was it the rumored financial dispute? The alleged production shutdowns? Crew discomfort? Legal threats? Insurance problems? Or simply a level of volatility that even TLC couldn't package anymore? Because it spilled too far past the edit? Or maybe it was all of it, gradually piling up behind the scenes until the decision wasn't should they stay, but how fast can we erase the noise? That kind of removal isn't just a storyline shift. It's a warning. To other cast members, to new faces circling the franchise, to anyone behind the scenes who thinks they understand the limit. There's a ceiling to drama, even in reality television. And when someone hits it, everything they've built becomes a liability, no matter how many years of ratings they brought in. Andrei played power games not just with the cast, but with the production, the structure, the edit. That's a higher stakes arena. That's threatening how the story gets told. Most stars don't mess with that part. Most who try quietly never appear again. And Elizabeth, caught at the center of emotional exhaustion and production expectation, may have simply hit her wall. When the network needs you to keep breaking down, and your only power left is to stop caring, it shows. On screen, in attitude, and eventually, in absence. Somewhere along the way, this couple's story outgrew its format, or blew out the limits of what the network was willing to tape. By the time it cost too much to control, cleanup had already started. And in this business, cleanup doesn't mean confrontation. It means retreat. It means silence becomes the thread holding the final scenes together. A scene no longer worth reshooting. A name no longer worth referencing in PR. And maybe that's what we're seeing now. Not a mystery, but a message. The camera is always in control. Until it doesn't roll. And when it stops, you don't get to finish the sentence. There's no last word. No catharsis. No fictional reunion where everything is forgiven. There's just an awkward blank space where the next episode should have started, and a growing list of fan theories trying to explain what the network won't. Because if Andrei and Elizabeth disappeared because they challenged the people behind the screen, not in front of it, then what happens to the next cast member who thinks they're untouchable until they're suddenly wiped out of the edit too? The next video looks at another fan favorite couple, now walking an eerily similar path. One charming enough to hide the cracks, until those cracks become production warning signs. Because if the erasure of Andrei and Elizabeth taught us anything, it's that in reality TV, you don't know what the final straw looks like until you're already past it. And by then, the cameras are off, you're out, and your silence does all the talking.